We've survived our first 48 hours of boot camp. It's time to buckle down and do what everybody's told us to do. Keep our heads down, do what we're told, when we're told, and otherwise don't get noticed. Great plan. Except when the RDCs call you in the office and tell you that you are now part of divisional leadership. Stay tuned.
I was on Firewatch, and I was at the forward of I was forward berthing, and near the RDC's office, and I had to balls the floor, and I remember fighting, falling asleep. I remember hearing the door close. I don't remember hearing it open, but I hear the door close, and the RDC is like right in front of me. So I must have been like half asleep with my eyes open, because I didn't hear the door open, nothing. It's pitch black out. And this RDC, his name was Chief House. And he had a short stature. He was maybe like 5'4", 5'5", but real stocky. Like you want to pick a fight with him type of a guy. And I remember he had a gold tooth, and he always wore sunglasses. So he walks up to me. He's like, "Recruit, follow me." So I'm like kind of nervous, So I follow him. We walk to the aft end of berthing, and we walk up to the other Firewatch, and he's like standing there asleep. And he RDC asked me, he goes, "Recruit, does this recruit look like he's asleep to you?" And I said, "It looks that way to me." And he goes, "Okay, go take your post." Next day, that guy was gone. He got rolled back.
Hello, welcome to part 2 of And So It Begins here on Sparks 1524. I'm Nathaniel Miller. Well, we're in boot camp, and we're going to keep our head down. At least that's what everybody tells you to do. We were Division 501. Our sister division, 502, berthed across the P-way from us in the same berthing. For training, sometimes 501 will be on our own, 502 on their own, but most of the time we would fall out in the morning on the grinder. They would give us the command to combine, and 501, 502 would merge together to become Division 501 combined on that second day. So it would be September 18th, 1997. The RDCs, Chief Canales, Petty Officer Wilson, and Petty Officer Moore are in the office. The office is we called it a fishbowl, small little office at the forward end of our berthing, big old window that the RDCs could look out and see mostly what's in the compartment. Now, once you go down 3 or 4 racks, between the racks and the columns holding up the building roof, you can't see very far back. That's important for later. We were all standing at our racks at attention, and Chief Canales calls somebody in the office. I don't remember who. He goes in, comes back out. Somebody else is called in, they come back out. I get called in. Seaman Recruit Miller, report. Frick. I go and report. Chief Canales is looking at my service record. Seaman Recruit Miller, so you have a degree in Florida State. Why the fuck aren't you an officer? I told Chief Canales, one, I needed a job really fast. The job market stunk, and getting into an officer program would have taken over another year. I needed a paycheck. Besides, if I went on to become an officer, I told him I wanted to know what sailor's life was like on the enlisted side, because that could only make me a better leader. Chief Canales says, well, let's see, you managed a bookstore for a church. Not bad. Did the drove forklift. You would make a great RPOC. The RPOC is the Recruit Chief Petty Officer. They are the recruit in charge of the division. Then you also have the AROC, Assistant Recruit Chief Petty Officer, who's the assistant in charge of the division. But Chief Canal says, you would be great for both of those, but I need to give that leadership to some of these young guys who are right out of high school and never did anything. You're going to be the yeoman. Crap. Petty Officer Wilson hands me a big canvas messenger bag that's going to get slung over my shoulder. And he tells me that bag is never to leave my sight or possession. If I'm asleep, it is to be hanging in the office. If I am awake, it is to be either on me or within grabbing distance. I handled all the squadron paperwork. I began my love affair with plain green logbooks at this point because I had to keep one and record everything that's going on. In addition, in this bag went my Ricky notebook. If you recall from part one, anything to do with recruits is called Ricky. You get sick, it's the Ricky crud. You are trying to smooth out wrinkles with your hand before inspection. This is your Ricky iron. Your notebook is your Ricky notebook. This is the notebook we take all our notes in, and the back several pages are stamped with passes. If you have to leave the division alone, you have to have a pass signed by the RDC or the instructor of whatever class you're in. This is where that canvas bag will come into play. The canvas bag I would wear as yeoman, and another recruit named Jake, who became a very good friend of mine, would wear as the educational petty officer. Those canvas messenger bags were our passes. I don't know if divisional yeomen and educational petty officers today in 2024 still use those bags as their passes. We did in 1997. And you know, those bags were better than Lilo's multipass from the Fifth Element.
Miss, multipass.
If we're marching around the base with that bag on and something in the bag, everybody assumed we were working. That's going to be important for later, too.
I think my best boot camp story has got to be when our laundry PO decided to say, "Oh yeah," to one of our RDCs, and he proceeded to just tear into him. And after that, he became the Kool-Aid man. And every time he walked by, our RDC would look at him and go, "Oh yeah!" And he got beat until that boy was crying. I'm talking crying like a baby.
My parents dropped me off at the Naval Recruiter Station in Frederick, Maryland, and then proceeded to drive down to Florida for their vacation. I went from waiting to go to the airport, to flying out of BWI to Chicago, to sitting around a USL while waiting for others to arrive, to getting on a bus at night to drive up to Great Lakes. Up until that point, everyone was nice and cordial until we were met by an RDC running onto the bus and screaming for us to, quote, "Get the fuck off my bus!" unquote. From there, we were thrown into boot camp mode. Processing took all night, and up until that point, I had never felt more tired. I also remember not being able to make the phone call to my parents to let them know that I had arrived, since I didn't know how to reach them at their vacation site in Florida. For the first couple of weeks, boot camp was stressful for me. It felt as close to prison to me as anything that I imagined at that time, but something happened after the third week. I actually had a little breakdown from getting frustrated with having to constantly restart exercises because we weren't doing it as a team. Once I regained my composure, something clicked for me. I was able to see that boot camp was more simple than I had thought. I was able to see the games being played by the RDCs, and I understood that, even though these games were frustrating, they got us to work together and operate in a way that was ideal in the US Navy. The swimming quals were nerve-wracking since I had never been a good swimmer. I remember climbing the tower used to have the recruits dive in the pool and observing those in front of me who were hesitant to dive in. They got yelled at by the swim instructors. I also remember seeing there were rescue swimmers in the pool waiting to help anyone who needed it once they made the jump. Although I was terrified about not being able to swim very well, I felt determined to not get yelled at when it was my turn. Once I hit the water, I came up and swam as hard as I could to get to the edge. Then came the fun part, doing the required lap around the pool. I struggled to do this. At some point, I had a rescue swimmer come up and tell me I'd failed and to go to the edge of the pool. In an involuntary reaction, I immediately responded, "Fuck you," to the rescue swimmer. The look on his face was priceless. I could see him trying to figure out if he should kick my ass, but he just stayed quiet and swam next to me as I finished my lap. When I finished, he congratulated me and said that I passed. While spitting out water, I tried to say in the nicest way, "Thank you." So I walk out with this canvas messenger bag on. So in my old dungarees, guard belt, canteen, and now a canvas messenger bag. Canteen on the right, bag on the left. I'm actually kind of balanced. Everybody's looking at me. A few more people get called in, and our divisional staff is set up. And then we all have to start moving racks. RPOC has to move up to the front, AROC to the back. I move up to the front. RPOC, when you're looking from the office down the berthing, RPOC, the recruit in charge, will be in the top rack on your left. Looking down the berthing, I get the top rack on the right. You go through P days, whether you like it or not. Those are processing days. They don't count toward your training, but it is a chance to get all the basic paperwork done, get your uniforms fitted, all that kind of administrative stuff. We had 2 weeks of P days. So that's 2 weeks of getting up at 4 o'clock in the morning, going to PT, running to shower and shave and clean up, run to eat, get into formation, get yelled at, but none of it counted. That was the longest 2 weeks of my life until I actually went to sea. But it's a chance to get stuff done. So when week one starts, you dive straight into training. One thing that that jogged my memory to impart one of this video. When I was watching the video I got from Navy Recruiting Command about the recruits showing up at RTC, of course you see RDCs right in people's faces yelling at them. I never once had an RDC get right in my face yelling at me. And I finally understood why. I honestly never understood it back then. I just didn't ask questions. Jason was 6'6" or 6'7". Told you about him, tall, second tallest guy I ever met. I'm 6'4". The tallest RDC that I ran into, or Jason ran into, was not even 6 feet tall. They were maybe 5'11". So Jason and I are a full head taller than all the RDCs. It's no wonder no one ever got in our face and yelled. Sometimes height helps.
I was one of the second, third, I was within the first 10 companies of females ever to be put in Great Lakes, Illinois. So none of the company commanders there that were males really knew how to handle us women. And we had to go in, and it was during shot week, and we were getting our peanut butter shots, and girls were falling out left and right. Again, we'd only been there maybe a week, 2 weeks at most. Didn't really know anyone. So, girls are crying. Oh my God, she's gonna die. Whatever. I'm over here going, guys, line up before we get in trouble. And, so anyhow, I put everyone in line and whatnot, and the, company commander, one of them, his name was BM1 Pritchard, had me lead them to chow and then lead them back home, which I called everything on the wrong foot, but we got back. Because the AROC and the RPOC both fell out because they were allergic to peanut butter shots. Anyhow, so we get back and we're cleaning up and we're doing the stuff that we need to be done. And BM1 Pritchard comes and stands in front of me. And I'm not kidding. This is what he sounded like when he talked. And he's like, "Are you the one who led the girls back from chow?" And I was like, "Yes, Petty Officer." Anyhow, he leads me into the office and he's talking with Petty Officer Carney, who had this really thick Brooklyn accent. And he was like, "Oh, so you led people back from chow? You want to be the new A-Rock? You the new A-Rock." Anyhow, so that's how I became A-Rock. And it was just funny how these male petty officers didn't know how to handle the females. The girls would turn on the waterworks and get everything we wanted.
Today, recruits training includes time aboard USS Trayer, a 2/3 size mock-up of an Arleigh Burke-class destroyer. Named for a Navy Cross recipient from World War I, the Trayer provides a hyper-realistic environment for recruits to practice damage control skills in. Everything from flooding to fire to blast damage can be simulated aboard this ship while the recruits are still safely ashore. The simulator that became USS Trayer was on the drawing board back in 1997, and I do remember the RDCs talking about it, but it wouldn't be built for a number of years. However, the other schoolhouses aboard RTC provided the basic level of training we needed, and some of them were surprise favorites. In fact, the firefighting school turned out to be so much fun. To be honest, I thought I was going to be very afraid of the firefighting part. I fell in love with it. It was awesome. And the best part was learning to handle that stupid hose. You watch a firefighting video in the Navy or even civilian firefighters, there's a hose team several men on that hose because there's a lot of water pressure in that hose trying to kick the hose backward. The nozzleman has the hardest job because they're controlling the nozzle as well as fighting the recoil. So you switch out the nozzleman periodically. When it was my first time to handle that stupid nozzle, I was the last man on the hose team, so I have to step forward. Every time we rotate, I'm stepping forward, but it's waiting for me, getting closer, getting closer. Finally, the dreaded nozzle is in my hand. So I go to turn it on, and you can set it to spray a fog, a straight stream, and you'd use these for different things. The fog, for example, creates a wall that blocks heat and smoke and can push it back so you can get further in the compartment. The straight stream is used to break up burning material and try and spread it around so it's not clumped together. And those are just some of the uses of the different settings. The straight stream, of course, puts out the highest recoil. With my luck being what it is, when I get up there, the firefighting instructor tells me, open the straight stream. I've never handled this damn thing before, and the first thing they're going to tell me to do is the hardest one. I have no funny stories about the thing shooting out of my hand. I have no funny stories about getting thrown backwards into the sailors behind me in a comical Keystone Cops rendition of Navy training. What I have was a very shocking moment that I turned it on and felt that kick, and the absolutely amazing discovery that I was in control. I'm holding that hose, that nozzle in place, and it's not getting away from me. That moment of controlling that fire hose, I didn't recognize it for what it was at the time, but that was the first counterpoint to me fainting at the galley when we arrived.
So the boot camp story that I can remember is a bit of a cautionary tale. It's kind of funny, but I used to hate the early morning routine and having to be rushed and jump into my uniform so abruptly. And I thought I was clever one night and decided to just wear my uniform underneath my sweatpants and sweatshirt. So yeah, I did that a few times and I got away with it a couple nights. But eventually, I think one time during kind of a patrol, the RDC came in and she saw a little tuft coming out of my sweatshirt of a blue camo. And I was abruptly ripped out of my rack and told to do a bunch of push-ups and jumping jacks and all the punishments they give you. So I received a much more rude awakening than I would have gotten if I would have just done what I was told and sucked it up and got dressed in the morning just like everybody else. So yeah, the lesson I learned there, it's better to do what you're told in boot camp.
Although the Trayer was still far in the future, we did have a ship simulator for deck seamanship training. This is the USS Marlinspike, basically a half model of a small ship. Aboard the Marlinspike, we were taught the difference between things like a windlass, a fairlead, a bollard, and a cleat. We were trained in the different procedures for handling lines. We had to learn the different commands given when you're getting underway or you're tying up a ship. It was all hands-on, it was very effective, and it was a lot of fun. Chief Canales was a hull tech. They are huge into damage control. Petty Officer Wilson is a bosun's mate. They are huge, obviously, into line handling and deck seamanship. You have the damage control Olympics and the seamanship Olympics at boot camp. Chief Canales took it very personally when we came in absolutely dead last place during the damage control Olympics, and he made sure we paid for it. Next week is the seamanship Olympics. Excellent. Except Division 501 and 502 were torpedoed again and once again came in last place, and Petty Officer Wilson made sure we paid for it. Yeah, those were some beatdowns, all right.
At this time, the United States Navy still maintained 3 separate locations for training: Orlando, Florida, Great Lakes outside Chicago, and San Diego, California. Recruit Training Command, or more commonly known as RTC-NTC, is now called Liberty Station and used for commercial development. I'll focus on a single notable memory. I have during my service week when I was working in the galley, helping prepare the meals to feed thousands of fresh recruits, learning what it means to be a sailor in those 8 hectic weeks. The chow hall faced a massive paved parade field used for physical fitness, marching, running, and it was something called the grinder. I think the structure is still visible on Google Earth. On the opposite side of the grinder was an administrative building, one time housing offices and the USO. This is not even a full year after a certain celebrated aviational themed movie was filmed around Southern California that was released the previous spring and summer. Of course, I'm referring to Top Gun. Within this office building was the very bathroom that the famous scene between Tom Cruise and McKelly McGillis was filmed. Just outside the door was a brass plaque marking the spot as a filming location. I had no idea when I reported aboard I would clean that bathroom at one point and get to lean against the very counter where Maverick and Charlie size each other. Great fun.
The one story that jumps out ahead of all others is a game of 4D chess I played with Petty Officer Wilson. I don't remember where the division was. They were out, but I was back in the compartment doing some pay record issues, and I couldn't be there alone, so Petty Officer Wilson was in the office with me while Chief Canales and Petty Officer Moore, our trainee RDC, were out with the division. I'm at a little World War II type of desk doing yeoman work, correcting names and socials and that crap, because I got to take some of this record to dispersing that afternoon to make sure people's pay doesn't get screwed up again. Petty Officer Wilson gets out and goes and walks out in the berthing and starts looking around. And I glance out the window and I see, him in the berthing, and he walks up to my locker. Okay, walks up to somebody else's and he's kind of going down. He comes back in and sits down. I don't think anything of it. I'm working. He gets up again and goes out there, and I glance out there and did a double take because he's actually poking at my locker. Okay, well, maybe he just wanted to double check his inspection. He comes to sit back down. I'm working. He gets up a third time, walks out the door. And I glance out the window. The hell is he? Son of a. He's actually moving things in my locker as he pokes them. This is boot camp. Everything in those lockers has to be down to the millimeter. Every time he touched something, he moved it, which means things are now getting out of standard. I knew exactly what he was doing in that moment. He's setting us up to fail. It's one of those boot camp games. He comes and sits down. He gets up and goes out and pokes around a little more and pokes around, and I'm watching now. He goes about 3 racks back, and okay, you got a rack and a rack with a locker in the middle, so it basically makes a little cube. Once you get about 3 cubes back, you can't see anybody anymore unless they're right in the middle of the compartment. Right? Otherwise, if they're behind the racks, you can't see them. As soon as he went out of sight, I was up. I ran to my locker space, fixed all my stuff, fixed everybody in my locker space, and was about to go to the office when I thought, crap, I can't just fix these guys. I got to take care of those guys. Ran to the cube on the other side, fix their stuff. He hadn't come back, at least that I could see. I was able to fix 6 queues before I'm pushing. I got to get back in the office and sit down and get back to work. Get back to work. He comes back in and he doesn't even look at me, he just sits down. But he's starting to steam. Or at least that's the performance he's giving. Working. He gets up and walks around and back out there. And I look out there and I see him poking and poking and poking definitively. So as he's out of sight, I'm up like a shot. I run out there, fix my stuff. I could take care of 6 cubes before I started to hear him come back and I had to get to the office. And he sits down behind me and I'm working. And I can feel his eyeballs burning holes in the back of my neck. He knows what I'm doing. I know he knows what I'm doing. He knows I know he knows I know. And I know he knows I know he knows I know he knows. You know? He gets up again, stalks out there, and now he's moving things in my locker and the others. Here we go again. As soon as he's out of sight, I jump out there, run, put everything back, run back to my desk, sit down. That's when I hear it. Son of a bitch! I jump out there and I look out the window, and there goes a pair of pants. Whoosh! And a shirt. Whoosh! There goes a hat. Whoosh! Like, okay, I bury myself in my work as he's walks in now, sits down at his desk, and he's grumbling. God dang, fricka, what? Fill in your curse words. He gets up and stalks out there. Of course, I'd already fixed my stuff, so I'm like, okay, my stuff's good. The six, they're good. He goes back. God damn! I look over there, and here goes a pillow, whoosh, and a blanket, whoosh. More clothes, whoosh, whoosh. It's just a hurricane. It's like a tornado's going through the compartment. And it's like that scene in the first Ghostbusters back in '85 where books are flying off the shelf and sequence down. As I'm watching, I can see stuff flying off in sequence that he shows up. And it's just this tornado going down the berthing. So I jump up while he's doing that, run out there, make sure my stuff and the other 6 cubes are good, run back, sit down. By the time the division came back, all of their stuff was in a pile in the middle of the deck. Mattresses, blankets, shaving kits, uniforms, everything. I don't remember what they were doing, but when they came back, they were in a really good mood. They're walking in, having a good time. I mean, not being boisterous, but yeah, they clearly had a good time. What the hell happened? Something snapped in me at that moment as everybody's staring and Petty Officer Wilson's starting to berate people about the condition of their lockers. I just decided I am not going to get beat down for this crap. If I'm going to get beat down later, it's because I deserve it. Boot camp logic. Oh, hey, I got a reason to get out of here. I got pay records to take to dispersing. So I get up and I can't just walk out here by myself. There's got to be crap. There's nothing I can do now. I've done everything. I can save one person. I can save one person. I get Jake. Hey, come here. Get your bag. We got to go to dispersing. I need your help to turn these records into dispersing. His locker was one of the ones I was able to save. Get our covers on, get our bags on, sign out the board, and we leave. Get downstairs. We got the back quarterdeck on the grinder. That's the recruit entrance. We're on the grinder, and we hear from the third deck where our berthing is. God damn it, drop! Jake looks at me as we're walking. I said, Petty Officer Wilson's playing games. When we go to personnel, get the pay records turned in. We might have spent half an hour to 45 minutes just marching in circles around the base, looking like we were going somewhere. We've been gone about a total of maybe an hour and a half when we finally decided we can't put this off anymore. Time to go back. I'm pretty sure Jake isn't going to get in trouble for any of this. But I know a beatdown's coming for me. But at least this is a beatdown I'm going to deserve. So we march back upstairs, hang up our bags, sign in. Jake does his stuff. And before I can do anything, Senior Recruit Miller, report! Crap. Here we go. So I walk into the office, knock, knock, Senior Recruit Miller reporting. Step in, close the door. He's staring at me. Miller, do you know why I let you get out of here today? Those pay records could have been done tomorrow. I knew what you were doing. Trying to sound a little more sure of myself than I actually was, I responded, I'm sure you did, Petty Officer, but I'm not sure why you let me go. Miller, if I could get half of them mofos to get their eyes off their own asses and look out for their shipmates like you did today, this Navy would be a hell of a lot better place. Dismissed. I headed back out and went on with my life. And of course, the next day we got beat down for something else. That story is the core of everything I learned at boot camp. It is the core of what boot camp for enlisted personnel and officer training for officers, that is what the core of what they're trying to teach us. What kept me out of trouble was the fact I didn't just take care of myself. I took care of it. I did what little I could for the few that I could, right down to getting Jake out of the compartment before the beatdown. As I've gotten older, and this was even before the autism diagnosis, but long before that, as I gotten older, I began to realize when I first thought of boot camp, I wasn't thinking about fainting on that first day anymore. I wasn't even thinking about the sense of, oh my God, I'm in trouble when they made me the divisional yeoman. The first memory, the first story that always comes to mind is that game of 4D chess with Petty Officer Wilson. I don't know if he expected me to do what I did. I really don't. I wish I'd asked him, but clearly I did the right thing. Older I get, the more I realize that was probably the single greatest moment in boot camp for me. The moment when, for me at least, as a recruit, it all came together.
I remember getting to boot camp July 1st when I flew from Phoenix, Arizona, got off the plane in Chicago, and rode the bus up to Great Lakes. I remember getting there, and those first couple of days were extremely busy. Here it is, July 4th now, and the biggest thing that I miss from being home at that time was listening to the fireworks getting shot off around us and not being able to enjoy spending time with the family or seeing them.
Battle stations is the final graduation exercise for boot camp. Today, the recruits spend most of battle stations aboard the simulator USS Trayer, with some events at other places on base. We didn't have the Trayer in my day, but we still went through the same events. The one event that really sticks in my head, though, was our escape scuttle drill. Now, an escape scuttle is a small round scuttle or hatch that's in a bulkhead, in another hatch, or in the deck, or in the overhead that lets you have an escape route. But it's narrow, and a man of my size, with my shoulder width, I have to, cram in. Our escape scuttle drill was done using plywood. This video clip I found shows Division 44 going through the escape scuttle drill during battle stations in January of 1999. This is just a year and a half after I went through it in November of 1997. This is the environment we trained in, and these pieces of plywood were our red-hot escape scuttles. The scenario was based on the horrible fire suffered by USS Forrestal CV-59 back in the 1960s. The drill required us to get all of our personnel from one side to the other through the scuttle without touching it because the metal's hot enough to burn us. All we had on us to use in the scenario were our uniforms, but we're also wearing our utility jackets, which is a uniform item. And the utility jacket is fire retardant. It's not fireproof. It will burn, but it takes a minute or two to get there. The idea being it gives you some protection to get out of the space. I don't know if the RDCs did this intentionally or not. I kind of think they might have. Division 501 and 502, we were training together. So when they divided us up for the teams for the escape scuttle, my small group ended up with myself and Jason, the kid who was 6'6", 6'7", as well as the shortest members of our combined division, both of whom were females from 502. So our group, you had a couple of females who were short, so short you can't see my hand on camera, and then myself and Jason. We piled our utility jackets on top of the scuttle, the material to insulate it. So we picked up the shortest female and pretty much threw her through, and she landed and somersaulted. Picked up the next shortest female, tossed her through. Picked up our shortest male, got him through, and the two females grabbed him and pulled him through. And we worked up the height line that way. So we got taller people on the other side slowly as we got to the taller people on my side. Finally, it was down to just Jason and me. Jason cupped his hands, grabbed my heel, and boosted me through, and I went through, was carried through by the others. That left Jason alone on the other side. Never forget what this kid did. He stepped back, ran forward a couple steps, and Supermaned right through that scuttle so we could catch him. And we did, got him through. None of us got, quote unquote, burned. We moved on with battle stations. Always love that memory. Battle stations is a 12-hour event, but it technically starts around 1800 at night, but you're up at 4 o'clock in the morning the day you start it for normal PT and chow and training. So you're effectively running around for 24 hours. And we had a great time that night. It was a lot of fun. And it was a moment that, at least for me, I hope for others, really showed that we learned not just a lot of individual skills, but that all these individual skills fitted together into a toolbox with which we could solve problems and complete the mission in the fleet. We finish that up, and then we have what's called the cap ceremony. Recruit caps are issued to you when you get your first uniform items, and you are told you are not a United States sailor. You are a recruit. If you call yourself a sailor while you're wearing this, all hell breaks loose. You haven't earned it. After battle stations, we have breakfast, and we go back and form up on our grinder. I think, if I remember right, the command master chief for the base came down. I don't remember. A couple of the more senior level chiefs were there, gave us the speech. Congratulations, you went through battle stations. You may now call yourself sailors. You're still going to be treated like you're in boot camp, still get up at 4 in the morning, PT, eat formation because you're still here under our care. But the only thing you have left is graduation and going. At which point, we were allowed to take these caps off and we were issued the Navy ball cap. This is the one I was issued that day, early November, well, mid-November 1997. Most of the guys got the newer one. This was one of the old ones in the inventory. The newer ones that most of the gang got was a slightly bigger cap. The word Navy was in taller, thinner letters that were a brighter gold. This is one of the older ones. I'm really glad I got this because I always thought it looked cool. The next several days were pretty relaxed by boot camp standards. Our schedule was still regimented, but we were beginning to outprocess as we got nearer to graduation. The last movie I ever saw as a civilian was George of the Jungle. Well, one night Chief Canales brought a videotape in for us to watch a movie in our berthing. So the first movie I got to see as a sailor in the United States Navy was 1997's Batman and Robin. Now, Batman and Robin is probably the weakest entry in the Batman franchise, and that's being very generous. But I've always had a fondness for the movie, not the least of which because it's the first film I saw as a sailor while getting ready to leave boot camp and head out to the fleet. I now have the privilege of presenting to you some of the memories of the only other person from Division 501 I'm still in touch with, former Air Traffic Controlman Second Class Jake Stout. Jake was our educational petty officer. He and I worked very closely together during boot camp, and frankly, he's one of the reasons I was able to keep my sanity. He sent me these recollections to read to you, so here's another window into somebody else's experience in Division 501. I learned, like many others after a few days in Great Lakes, to just do what I was told and how I was told to do it. Easy, right? That was my plan, and it worked. Lay low as possible and stay under the radar. After a number of weeks and suffering through many make it rain sessions caused by fellow recruits, I had my part figured out. Now I just had to get the rest of my division on board. Then the RDC came out one day and jumped my ass for doing everything right. Stout, he said. You think you're better than everybody else? Absolutely not, I replied. Well, go ahead and drop, he ordered. After many push-ups, sit-ups, and who knows what the hell else, he finally let me stop. In the end, I took pride knowing I had done my best, and knowing the RDC knew it, even if he had an interesting way of showing it. Graduation is a formal pass and review ceremony. The graduating divisions march in formation through the main drill hall, passing in review before the official party. Following this are the requisite speeches. The local admiral speaks, the commanding officer of the naval station, and then any guest speakers, with the ceremony culminating in all personnel reciting the sailor's creed. Being that it was now late November, we were all in our dress blues, and having all of those sailors enlisted an officer in their dress blues in this beautiful drill hall really made it feel about as Navy a day as possible. You don't leave boot camp immediately after the graduation ceremony. First, you have Liberty Weekend, which is your first Liberty time since coming to boot camp. My folks weren't able to make my graduation because of some family obligations that came up, but Jake's parents were able to attend. They were kind enough to invite me to come with them into Chicago for the weekend, so I got to explore Chicago with Jake and his parents, and it made the weekend a whole lot of fun. We went to the top of the Sears Tower, Willis Tower. I was alive when the damn thing was built. I'm sorry, I still call it the Sears Tower. Highest I've ever been inside a man-made structure that wasn't an airplane. One of the ironies a lot of sailors get to experience, and Jake and I were no different, is that the first warship we set foot aboard as United States sailors was a captured enemy ship. The submarine U-505 is a German U-boat captured by the escort carrier USS Guadalcanal back in 1944. It's on display at the Museum of Science and Industry. Of course, we toured it, so the first ship we set foot aboard as part of our Navy was a warship from somebody else's Navy. They also had a really beautiful exhibit on the artwork of Charles Schulz, the artist, the cartoonist who drew Peanuts, created Charlie Brown and Snoopy. I always loved his works. That was a really neat exhibit to get to see. We get to the airport to fly out on Thanksgiving Day, 1997. This time I was dressed for the flight. Had my dress uniform on, had my pea coat. I was not going to freeze on the airplane that time as I flew back to Florida. Called home to say happy Thanksgiving. Mom and dad are on the phone. I can hear my brother in the background, some family friends. I grew up in the Air Force. Now, my dad wasn't gone as much as a lot of people's, but he was gone a good bit here or there. This was when the kick in the gut hit me. Pop's home. He's retired. I'm now the one who's not there for the holiday. I'm now the one in uniform who's on orders with a mission somewhere else. It's one of those moments you know is coming. You know intellectually it's there, but until you experience it, there's really no way to describe the pit of the stomach, the hammer dropping into the pit of the stomach for just a moment and realize that this is real. It's my turn and I'm the one going out on the proverbial front lines now. That was a very sobering moment, but it didn't last. After I hung up, I gave myself a few minutes to really be sad, but then I went and caught up with Jake and the other guys, got on the airplane when it was time, began our adventures in the United States Navy. I want to thank everybody, all of you who contributed your memories to this production. I had a lot of fun finding out what struck you all about boot camp. And to you, my audience, thank you for your time. I hope you enjoyed this look at my boot camp adventures and the window into the lives of my shipmates and my friends who've been through similar experiences. Until we meet here again on Sparks 1524, have a great holiday season as it gets ready to come upon us. Be safe. Always go and do some great things.
Anyway, my biggest problem that I had in basic was because I was older and I wasn't really intimidated. The TIs ranting and raving kind of knew what was going to come. And I had trouble during inspections, barracks inspections, when they were going person to person and looking up and down. And I had trouble not smiling. They were always on me about that. But I got in trouble once in the middle of an instruction session where he started talking about something and I kind of laughed and he goes, "You think this is funny?" Oh, "No, sir." He says, "Well, I do. Get your ass up against the wall and push on it like you're a train." And so I'm like, okay. I had trouble not smiling at that and so I was there pushing on the wall until he said stop. The obstacle course, and that was fun. I waited for that because I wanted to see how I could do. We ran through trails and there was water and ropes to swing across. Then we came to this one thing where they had logs horizontally stacked this way, like stairs, and you had to go over one, under the other, not real high, but and when you went under, you had to swing and grab the other and pull yourself up. And my little 135-pound frame, there was a guy in front of me and he could not swing under. So I was pushing him from my perch, pushing him so he could get up on the other before I swung over that. So that went well. I was proud of myself for that. Come to the end of basic training, and your mother, so she drove up with us.
No, you two have been married just like 3 months when...
Something like that, yeah.
Okay, yeah, because you went in September and y'all got married in March.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
March,
right.
April, May, June, July, August. Wow, 6 months.
Yeah, it was 6 months. So she came down to visit me, and we had passes because we were right at the end there. I go out to meet her, and she had acquired a little dog. Some poor little dog that was being abused in somebody's yard, and she just snatched him. Baby girl was her name. So she came out there, and I took the leash from the dog, and I held my wife's hand, and we were walking towards the common area, wherever we're allowed to go. And then from the orderly room, there was, "Airman Miller, get in here." So I go bouncing in there, and "What do you think you're doing?" That's what my wife said. "There's 2 things you don't do down here in basic training. You don't hold your wife's hand, and you don't hold the dog leash." "Yes, sir."